Hello, this is Odeean. Today I'm having a look at GX39 Soul of Chogokin Baikanfu. Normally, to review a complex and big toy like this, I would start at the other end, showing the robot in its full mode first. But with this guy, Baikanfu, I think it's really necessary to start with the small parts first, because it builds on top of it. So in my hand here, you can see the central figure of Baikanfu, a guy called Rom Stoll. I don't know the fiction, but it tells you on the box. This is Rom Stoll and his wife Lena Stoll. So Rom and Lena Stoll. Now, Rom has his armoured face on here, but you'll see that he also comes with this little face, this little helmet with the natural face exposed. So it comes down to how you want to pose him. I like the helmeted face, so I'm not going to put this on. You'll see that the figure is very poseable. So he's got tons and tons of articulation. And there's pretty much nothing this figure couldn't do as far as reaching a pose. He has multiple sets of hands. So if you look at the display base here, you can see that all of these little blue hands can go on him. He's got gesturing hands, pointing fingers, karate chop, fist, grasping, many different kinds. Also on the base here you can see an alternate head for Lena Stoll. So that's her helmeted head. So even on her helmeted head, the visor is up. Here's a close-up of Lena. She's got a cute kind of little face, but I find her proportions, especially in the chest area, are a little bit weird, a bit unnatural. Apart from the two figures, we have these blank bodies. We'll get to these later though. I'll show you what to do with these in the bigger toy. As far as weapons are concerned, Rom has these really nice looking, extremely shiny chromed swords that he can hold in his hand. On the box it actually shows that you can stick them together like this, but I don't know how they do that. Maybe partially insert the sword kind of like that. I haven't been able to get it to stay nicely, but he could hold one in each hand if you need to use both at the same time. Okay, let's get him ready to suit up. So if you're not familiar with this Baikanfu set, the whole point is armor on armor on armor. So Rom is going to, if you just bend his feet up like this, he's going to put on a suit of armor. Now this is Kenryu. I don't know if he's meant to be a character or just armor, but either way you can see that he really splits open in every way like this to take Rom inside. So Rom's feet going to sort of to the thighs of Kenryu here, and his little tabs on his bicep, or is it his forearm? It's on the forearm. Little tabs on the forearm to keep his arms in the correct location up here. So if I get those red bits tabbed in up here and then close these panels over the top and then just push them all in here, what I can do then is start closing the panels. And we end up with Kenryu. On its own, I would have been even satisfied if this is where the set stopped, because just the fact that this robot can maintain virtually full poseability yet have another guy inside him, that in itself is more than enough to make me happy. And the overall look of this guy he's got a really good look too. I'm really happy with the way the face looks. If I can just give you a bit of a close-up there. I like the symbol on the front, the face, this design of the little cylinders on the shoulders. Good poseability, rotation on those elbows there. He's got good motion in the leg. The only place it lacks a little bit is in the range of motion backwards and forwards, but you know, it's hard to complain knowing that there's another guy inside this guy. So apart from the articulation and the overall look, it's actually quite heavy. This has tons of die cast in it, so this portion of the leg, this lower leg portion, this is metal, the feet are metal, the joints, the ball inside this ankle is metal, the chest plate here is metal, I think. Maybe yeah, it's metal. This waist is metal, the groin piece here is also metal, and I think the head is, no, the head might be plastic, but tons of metal content. This is quite heavy. So, weapons. So this guy comes with a sword of his own. Very similar, in fact identical to one of Rom's smaller swords. So again, that can just slot in. Because of the high degree of poseability, you can get all kinds of poses happening. Good play value in this, and it's pretty robust. It's not something you have to worry about falling to pieces all the time while you're using it. And even though we get a good firm grip in the hand, it doesn't stick in so that you can't easily remove it. It's got a lot to do with the angle of the kind of taper of the handle here, so it sticks in the last bit and easily comes out in the first bit. So apart from the sword, he has this shield with the logo. I think it looks like a wolf logo to me. I don't know what it's meant to be, but to me it seems like wolf. And he can hold that like this. This shield goes best with Kenryu. He also has multiple hands, so you can see these. There's some light on it. All these blue hands belong to him. So he's got 2 karate chops, 2 semi-grasping hands, and 2 fists, along with the holding fists that he's got on at the moment. So let's take the shield off. And prepare him for combination with his exosuit. So first we're just going to bend these toes up like this. Let's put his arms out to the side, and that's pretty much all we have to do to get him ready. Now the big bit. Again, this is all splayed open, ready to accept a pilot. Maybe put his legs a little bit closer together. So he's just going to slot his feet into these lower legs, and you can see at the back, the heels are just going to poke through. You know you've got it in the right spot when you can get these heel sections poking through the sort of calves. And when you feel like it's all in a good spot, you start closing the panels. So there's no tabs in these 4 arms like there were with ROM, but once they're in a kind of good spot where you can see it's all bending properly, you can start closing these little panels, and they will tab down just so You can hear that nice snap sound when they tab down. Oh, yeah. Now we've got these little holes at the front here. It almost seems to me like something was supposed to poke through these little holes, but I don't think it does. It's a little bit unclear why the holes have been left in the front of the thigh. The shins just snap up like that. More of these circular guards over the shoulders. Chest panel slides down, and finally the head. Baikanfu. This is one of my favourite figures. This is one of my first Soul of Chogokins. So I've got some other sort of chogokin figures. You can call lots of different figures chogokins, but as far as Soul of Chogokin, this is the one that got me to buy it. I've always been partial to robots in robots in robots, and what this really reminded me of is a scene from Robotech. I know a lot of people don't like Robotech. I just remember it from Robotech Masters, I think, where they had the clones and Zor and all those dudes, and one of them was inside a bioroid. He was kind of piloting it, but he was inside it like the same way that Rom is inside this guy, and sort of harkens back to that, and that's what sort of sparked my interest. But then the more I looked at it, the more awesome I realised this is. I mean, look at that. A guy inside a guy inside a guy, and he still can maintain full poseability in these shoulders. They've precisely measured the location of those joints so that it doesn't screw with the way he can move. He's got a little bit of a weirdness in his elbow, in the way that it's made, but that aside, it performs the movements in any pose you would want. It's just that you have to think about exactly where you're going to put it a little bit, because the way that it pivots is a bit odd. But still, it gives you that full range, even though it's a little bit odd. You just got to have a little bit of a weird way of getting there. So apart from the arms being fantastic, he has poseability in his legs, albeit a little bit limited, especially in the upper thigh. So we've got some movement. It's got a really nice ratchet in it, but that movement is somewhat limited to 3 clicks. And I think the main reason it's limited is because the first guy, Rom, his joints aren't exactly in the right spot. In the knee, we get much more than I expected. And the way they did that was, if I open this up, you can see that the knee isn't really bending entirely at the knee of Kenryu. So Kenryu's knee is kind of double jointed. He's got the knee joint up here, but then there's another hidden joint inside his shin. And by using those two joints, it can get a much greater range of motion in the bigger combined figure than what you would otherwise expect. And that's got great ratcheting on it as well. One thing you do miss out on is much of a kind of thigh swivel or thigh rotation. So with this little hinge at the back, you get a little bit of that, but it's extremely limited. So as well as that, you miss out a bit on torso rotation. You can see that this spine pin is off-center, so you get some kind of some ability to twist, but because of the off-center nature of it, it's limited because it wants to drag the innards along with it, and it can't do it. I guess some sacrifices had to be made. The only way they could have avoided that would be to have a sort of a bearing, a ring the whole way around the waist, that it could rotate on that, but at this scale I'm not sure that that would have been really practical. So on the head, get side to side, up and down, not that poseable on the head. And Kenryu was hardly poseable at all. I think his head was actually glued in place. So the head isn't a strong point, but on the big figure here, you get, on the Baikanfu part, you get enough to do some emoting. Looking down at the feet, feet are huge metal feet. So we've got a side-to-side pivot like this, ratcheting backwards and forwards, and this inexplicable foot motion. I don't know why he's designed to have this degree of downward toe motion. Upward I could understand. Downward, it just seems really weird. Maybe just a byproduct of they wanted that one notch up, and to get the one notch up made them have all this flexibility downways. Kind of strange. Okay, die cast in the larger figure is it's much more limited than in the Kenryu figure. So looking at him here, his feet are really heavy and metal, and if you put him down on a glass table you hear that clunk to metal here. But these shins, this part here, this is all plastic. We've got metal on the thigh guard, metal on the waist stroke groin piece, a big metal chest, and then I think that's about it as far as metal goes in the bigger figure. My table here is on a slant. You can't see it in the shot, but it's actually leaning backwards. It's a little bit, with a figure this heavy, it makes him want to fall over. But with those huge feet, even though it's leaning backwards, you can see you can get it to stand in a good position. So weapons. He has an even bigger version of the same sword. So holding these three swords together, you can see what I'm talking about. Tiny, good sized, and huge. Exactly the same sword, three different scales. And again, it makes a nice mating with the hand right at the end. Easy in and out, and then that last bit, firm enough to hold in virtually any position. So the shield, as I mentioned before, can also be held in Baikanfu's hand, but I don't know if I care for it that much in Baikanfu's hand. This guy looks so bulky to me, I don't see that this small shield is really going to be that much help to him more than the hindrance of using it. Okay, so again, he has a ton of extra hands. So we've got these sort of really, I don't like these, but they're kind of emotional, emoting hands, karate chop hands, and punching fists over here, along with the fist for grabbing that he's got on right now. So now that you've seen all these little bits and pieces on the bases, what you can do is snap the pieces together like this. That one on top of that one, and then this one, is that right? This one on top of that one, to make a kind of mountain peak or rock. Not sure exactly what it's meant to be, but the point is you get all the fiddly stuff inside this rock so that you don't have to lose it and worry about where it's flying off to. After that, we can grab the shield, and it just pegs on backwards. The huge sword, it can just slot in here, and you'll see that there's a hole in the rock, so the sword actually sticks in the rock like Excalibur, as do the other swords. So there's different sized holes for the different sized swords, and they kind of just stab into the rock. They don't fit. It's not like a snug fit or anything. It's more like just the tips of it poke in enough for it to balance there. So this is what you end up with, kind of mountain of swords. There's also a little foot peg, so you can tab on Lena like this. You can have her standing next to your sword mountain, posing and looking good on display. Okay, I mentioned before that we get these blanks with Baikanfu. Now the purpose of these is in case you want to display all the pieces separated out, but you just want to fill in the little hollows, because otherwise you would have big empty gaps inside the two outer pieces without the inner pieces inside. You can just stick the blank in, so it pretty much goes in the same spot as Kenryu, but it doesn't have all the extensions. It just mainly does the kind of hip holes here and the shoulder holes here. So you still end up with a bit of a cavity happening. So you can see this area here looks pretty bad, pretty hollow, pretty bad. It's a pity they couldn't have extended it around. Even if it stopped the posing, I would have been happy with just a solid joint that filled in that gap, because that looks pretty terrible, to be honest. I don't think I'll be posing it in that way. And get this blank ROM body and stick it in. Close up all the tabs. You can see that this one does a much... What's going on here? This one does a much better job of hiding the fact that there's nothing inside. So looking at him, I can hardly tell that ROM is not inside Kenryu. So as far as being able to use him with ROM out, that's fantastic. ROM here, Kenryu here, who would know? So the blank is really effective. The only place you can see it is if you look from the back. Looking from the back, you can see in this kind of part under his butt that there's nothing in there. You get that hollow space. And also, if you're going to do some posing where the legs go like this, you can see in the joint here. But it's pretty effective. I'm happy with the way that one does it. So that's it. Can I recommend getting Baikanfu? Definitely, I recommend getting Baikanfu. This is a fantastic toy, really awesome. And getting this Soul of Chogokin has virtually guaranteed that I will get as many other Soul of Chogokin toys as I can. It's just a pity that there's so many in the back catalogue that seem out of my reach now. So I don't know what Baikanfu sold for when he was new. I had to pay close to 300 after shipping to get this, which is, man, it's a bit pricey for me, but what can I say? If you want it, you've got to pay. So thanks for watching my video review. This has been Odeean. This has been Baikanfu.